Hi everybody, Nick from 360 Big Sky Media here. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a great week. A little bit chilly in the UK today, hence jumpers and things, so a little bit chilly. And I apologise if there's any noise you can hear outside. The wind is blowing an absolute gale today after the storms we've had the last couple of days, so it's a little bit noisy, so I do apologise. On with the next video. So in the last video we finished up everything in the virtual tour options page, and we said we're going to go into the customizer and go through that. The customizer is a huge part of Theasys, and it's great at being able to make your tour really on brand for that customer. And there's so much in there that people don't know what there is in there. So what I'd like to do is go through that today very quickly, just give you a snapshot of what's in there. The way we'll do it is we'll use our demonstration tool that we've used in the past, but I'll also show you a couple of live tours which are my customers which have gone out there, so you can see how much we can change the look and everything. Now the whole point of the customizer is to be able to create embeds. I've mentioned embeds a couple of times. Embeds allow you to change every single aspect of the tour for various audiences. So if you're using Theasys to do real estate, some MLS software don't allow you to put logos in, or nadir patches or transitions or anything at all, maps, floor plans. And once you've built your tour, you can then create an embed with those things turned on or off, so you could have multiple versions of that virtual tour for different audiences. Let's imagine you're doing a real estate property and the letting agent wants a certain style, the homeowner wants a certain style, and then it may get rented out at a later date, or it may be available to lease. That might be a different style of virtual tour as well, with more things integrated. And so to be able to do that is quite interesting. I'm not going to go through the embed option today, as I keep saying. I'm going to go back to it. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first 10 options in the customizer menu. I think you'll get an awful lot out of today's video. There'll be things in there you didn't know you could do. The customization features don't change that much between certain options, so you'll kind of see that. If you are getting plenty out of these videos, if you can give us a thumbs up, it tells YouTube it's a good video and they'll show more people, and that'll allow us to get to where we want to be, which is to make Theasys the biggest and best virtual tour creator that there is out there. So with that said, let's jump into Theasys and let's talk about some customization options. So you can see that we are in Theasys now. We are at our virtual tour options page, which is the one we're normally at. And what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to click on the customize option. And when we click on the customize option, it'll load our tour, but it'll also load all of these customization options. And what I want to do is I want to go down to today Panoramas Transition, and I want to give you the option to have a look at what we've got up there. Now on the customization options, you can do tablet, vertical landscape, mobile phone, you can do whatever, but I'm going to keep it full desktop. And if you ever need to refresh, you just press the reload tour. I'm not going to cover these at the moment. I'm going to come back to these, as I say, in a later video. So the first thing we can do is change the font of the whole tour. Now, all we do is click, and we can see that system fonts, we've got 5, but the guys at Theasys have added every type of Google font you would ever want to use. If we want that one, we just press apply, and that will be applied to everything that we do going forward. It won't be applied to information panels, pop-ups, or hotspots, 2D or 3D text. You would still need to go into them hotspots and use the customize option in there to change them over. For descriptions, titles, for labels on hotspots, all of them things will be changed to the default font. The optimization of panoramas, you can actually set the way that Theasys loads and what the options that the customer doesn't get to see but you get to see. So as you see here, we've got an option of desktop, tablets and mobile. We can change the optimization to quality or speed. So if you want people to be able to watch this on a desktop, they're obviously using a larger screen, you would prefer them to be able to see that in quality rather than speed. But if somebody's on a mobile phone, the quality is not really that important because the screen's normally smaller. So you would normally set that one to speed. Now Theasys starts loading panoramas when the tour is loaded. So when this tour here has loaded, Panorama in the background will be progressively loading the different panoramas. So if we've got 10 panoramas, it'll start loading a couple in the background. So when the customer then clicks on the hotspot, what it'll do is it will automatically show up at the best quality that we've agreed on, whether it's set for speed or whether it's set for quality. We can change that to full. And what that'll do is that tour will now load every panorama in the background. So when the customer clicks on it, it loads quickly, easily, and it's in really, really high quality. I tend to leave mine to progressive because if you've got a tour with a lot of panoramas, it can slow the loading of the tour up if you've got it set to full. Ultimately, anybody who's viewing your panoramas, certainly viewing your tour, isn't going to click through 10 images straight away. They're going to have a look at each image as you go forward. Next, we have something called floating arrows navigation. Now, if you're on the free version, you won't have floating arrows as an option. This will be grayed out. You won't be able to enable them. But what floating arrows are these navigation hotspot arrows. So if we go into our tour, you can see the hotspot arrow that we used is there. If we use floating arrows, we get this nice movement that it kind of moves so it sets to where we want to be. And then when we click that, it goes forward. And anywhere where there is more than one hotspot arrow, you can see as we move them, they actually pivot round. It's quite a nice feature. To enable them, all you do is click enable floating arrows. And you can see that when we click on our first panorama, we have a floating arrow there. So by clicking floating arrows, we enable them and they will appear there. But we've also got the other panorama there. So let's get rid of that. And what we do is we hide link to new panorama and we have our floating arrow. We can change whether it goes up or down. And we can hide them on this level if we want to. Again, back to the embed options that we're going to cover later on. So what we can do is we can go into the styling icon and we can change the way this icon looks. Now we don't have to have that as a street view arrow. We can have whatever we want. So if we change that to compass by using this option up here, what we can do is we can change the opacity of that. And you can see by changing the opacity, it changes it from white to black. But what happens if we want to make it on brand like these, which are teal? Well, all we would do is press the color and change it to teal and press save, and now it's changed the color. If we want to change the shadow opacity, we can. This is our shadow opacity under the bottom of the arrow, you can see. And if we want to change the shadow color to maybe white, you can see underneath the arrow, it's changing from black to white. If we want to go back, we just press the refresh button. If we want to change the opacity when we hover over, you can see that's gone darker. We can do that. If we pull that all the way down, you can see it's gone very black. That's not quite as dark, and we can change that background color if we want to green. So now when we hover over it, our arrow changes to a green color. And again, we can change the shadow opacity. Now we come on to the circle, we can change the color of the circle, we can change the opacity of the circle by sliding that backwards and forwards, and we can also change the color of the circle. Now we come on to labels. Do we want to add labels in? Yes, we do. Absolutely, we want to add labels on. What are labels? Well, labels are something that'll give the customer an idea. So we've got come in there, and we turn that off and it'll disappear. So we don't have a label. What we can do is add the label in there, and the labels come from what we've set up as either our panorama description or as our hotspot tooltip. So on this one, I'm setting them up as hotspot tooltip, and we can display them just on hover. So if we press that, it'll get rid of them. And then when we hover over, it'll tell us to come in. We can change the color of the text. We can change the text size. We can change the location. We can change everything about it. So as you see, the background color on mine is at the moment red. If we want that back, we just change that to white. As you can see, it's changed our font to the font that we've used. If we want them on the top, we will put them on the top. If we want them on the bottom, to the left or to the right. And we can change the size of the text if that's what we want to do. We can change the background padding, X and Y values, and we can change the border. At the moment it's on dotted. We can change it to solid, and we can change the background border radius, which is whether it's square or whether it's got curved corners. So it's hugely customizable, massively customizable, and you'll find this is the same for pretty much everything that we'll see when we go through Theasys. Now we come on to click anywhere navigation. So if we click on this tour here, you'll see that we have floating arrows enabled, but we also have this circle which appears in the direction of that hotspot, which basically means if I click there, it'll go forward into the next panorama. You can see we have 3 floating arrows here. So if I click anywhere over here, it'll go to this panorama. If I click anywhere to here, it'll go to that panorama. And if we click anywhere from there, it'll take us back outside. How do we do that? Really simple. We just click enable. And then when we go inside, you'll see when I move, we've got this ring. Let's change that to a thin arrow. So we've got this thin arrow that follows us, and we have a couple of options. First option is we can follow the direction of the panorama hotspot. So you can see that hotspot points in that direction, and that arrow will always point in that direction. Or we can change it to follow the hotspot position rather than direction. So you can see now as I move left and right, the arrow is pointing towards the hotspot. I have mine with follow direction, and we can auto scale them left and right if we want to. We can hide the icon on hotspots hover, which allows us to turn this off if that's what we want. Not an option I do. And again, if we want to change the styling of these arrows, we can go into that and we can change the opacity of the arrows. You can see now it's gone black. We can change the color of the arrows. We can see it's gone pink, etc., just like we did before. And we can also change the labels. We can enable labels, so when that is on, we can see we've got another label in there. Gets a little bit confusing. I tend to leave that off, but you can add that in if you want to. Next we come on to password protection. I haven't password protected this tour, but if I had, it would be there. If it's not in and we've decided we want to do this, we can press edit here. Now again, remember what I said, this is all about making multiple versions of one tour. So if you're sending it over for the first draft and you don't want it shared, you would put a password in there, and that would then enable the people to say that's fine. When you deliver the final product and they've paid the bill, you would remove the password from it. You just press edit and it'll enable you to click password protect and put a password in there. Autoplay, a lot of people ask me about autoplay. So let me show you what it is. So on this virtual tour, if we load it, we get this thumbnail of the business and we have just the play arrow. So if we want to enable autoplay, we get rid of this and it'll go straight to the first panorama, which is there, come in. Now a lot of people ask me how I get my start screens. I'm a big believer in start screens. So this start screen here is the company's logo, which I've edited in Affinity. Just put a background color on the same to match. So all we have is a play button, a link to a website and a link to a phone number. And the rest of this is just their logo. In this one, we have a photograph that we've taken when we've been out at the property. And what we have is we have the tour title showing and then the tour description showing, along with the telephone, the map icon, the link, the play, and the company's logo on the start page. So how do we do that? Well, it's really easy. Turn off autoplay and let's click cover image. So what we want to do is we want to put a cover image in there. Let me just find a one. There we go, we'll use that. So that is now the cover image of our virtual tour. Not the ideal one, but that's the one that we'd use, and we now have a start button. Do we want to add a logo? Yes, and the logo will show up there on the start page. So again, click logo, find your logo, Really, really simple. Don't know what that is, but I'm going to put it in there. And the logo shows up there. Really simple. Do we want to add a title? Yes. So we've got demonstration. And do we want to add a description? Yes, we do. And do we want to add an overlay to darken everything down? Yes, we do. Do we want to add a link to the website? Yes, we do. So if we press link to website, put a website address in and press submit. If we click on map, we can find the map link. I find my map links by going to the business and pressing share. When I press share, I just get send a link, copy the link and put that into there and press submit. And if we want to add a phone number, we can copy and paste the phone number from the business and press submit. And that's how we create that starting screen that I use. If you don't have any of that clicked, none of that will open. You'll just get the default picture, the thumbnail. Then we can style that. What we can do is we can change the overlay, which is this black bit. We can change how dark or how light we want that. We can change the opacity of the hover button. So if we want it darker, you can see it isn't as dark. If we want it lighter, there we go, it blacks everything out. The play button, we can change the opacity of that. We can have a bright white or bright dark, and we can have the opacity when it's clicked on or hovered over. You can see there it gets a little bit lighter. If we want to change the color of this text, we indeed can. We just drag it to there and it goes purple. And if we want to change the color of the icons, we can. If we go purple again, we can change the color of the icons. We can change how or what the opacity is, and also the size of the icons and the space between them. So hugely customizable front screen. If we look on a lot of these, you'll see that I customize them when I start. The starting panorama, on a general tour, you're not going to change that because you've set it to your default view and you've set the first panorama on your tour. But let's imagine that there's certain tours that you do a tour and you want to have a version of it where people can only look at the first two panoramas, or the third panorama or the fourth panorama. You can change them. The onload transition is when we start our virtual tour, you'll see there's no transition there. If we drop down, if we do walk through and move in, it allows us to get that nice fluid movement that people like. And then our panorama transition is when we go from hotspot to hotspot. You can see it's very, very much a jump. There's no smooth movement there. We can change that to walk through and move in. And now when we press, we'll get that nice smooth movement going through there. And that's the Theasys customizer. As you can see, it's really in depth. And the customization level is there's desktop versions of Virtual Tour Creators don't yet have this level of customization built in. The fact that Theasys allows us to do it on the website from a cloud-based computer, the fact that I can do this with my Chromebook when I'm out and about is just amazing. Hope you got lots out of today's video. In the next video, we're going to explore the customizer a little bit more, do the next options that we can. If you got something out of the video, I know I keep banging on, but a like would be amazing. Subscription, pinging the notification bell, absolutely fabulous. The links to the Facebook page are over there. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments or jump on the Facebook page and we will try and answer them. I don't pretend to know everything about Theasys, but luckily I do know some people who do, which is great, and we can go back to them and ask. Have an amazing week and we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys.